Cloudcast Media. Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. A good day when we have our friends from the USD School of Leadership and Education Sciences, better known as SOLS. In the house with us is Dr. Niki Elliott, Director of the Center for Embodied Equity and Neurodiversity. How you doing, Niki?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for the invitation to be with you.
We are just absolutely honored and joined by my colleague. He's my business partner. He's the CEO and founder of Cloudcast Media, Charles Parisi, who loves working with the USD Souls folks. We can just go down the list. Kimberly, White Smith, Perla Myers, and the host of folks in between.
Yeah, there's a phenomenal community partner, and they have a culture of saying yes, which is an amazing thing. So it's great to have you here.
Well, we're grateful for the opportunity to share the message about our good work. So
you do great stuff. How long have you been with Souls?
So about a year and a half, I've been here with the university, helping to found and build out the Center for Embodied Equity and Neurodiversity.
That's very, very exciting. Where were you before?
I was at the University of Laverne for 7 years for there.
Okay.
I was a founding director, first co-director and then director of we called it there, the Center for Neurodiversity, Learning, and Wellness at the University of Laverne.
So what got you into neurodiversity? Were you always interested in this as a student, as a kid? When was the epiphany?
Throughout my education experience, I've always just been a teacher. So even as a high school student, my first job was helping to run a summer camp. And I've always, from that point on, even through college, worked in education. I've always been interested in, I guess, what would be referred to as marginalized learners. In high school, when I was at UC Berkeley, I was an assistant teacher at Berkeley High, and they assigned me to supporting students that were in the continuing ed programs. And I just always noticed children that people had discarded or written off that were really a lot more than what the adults were not seeing
100%.
in them. And so even from there, just looking at the disparities, who gets tracked into those situations, and are they really less cognitively capable, or is there something else that we're missing going on, is kind of the question that I've asked.
Yeah.
In my first teaching position, I was a fourth grade teacher in Teaneck, New Jersey, right outside of New York City, after finishing my graduate degree and teaching credential. And in that case, similarly, veterans were able to offload the students that they didn't want to have in the class. They allowed them to cherry pick their classes. And so the new teachers got the less desirable or preferred students. And from that first year of being a classroom teacher, I saw, again, many students of color, but it was a very diverse class. But there were several that were very bright. And I started to engage with families, like, what if it's not what people think it is, the willful misbehavior? What if there's something else going on? So we didn't have the language or the terminology of neurodiversity in 1992 or 94. We didn't have the language around trauma-informed teaching, but we lived the work. And the difference that I was able to make in the lives of those students carried forward and became just a career path.
No, that's great. My daughter's a fourth grade teacher in
yay.
Chaparral Elementary in the Poway School District. So how would you define neurodiversity?
So in the term neurodiversity was born in the autism community, just to suggest that we are more than the symptoms and the pathology that's often assigned to the challenges that people who face with developmental disabilities. And so the word now covers a larger umbrella than just autism. It covers also dyslexia, ADHD, sensory processing disorder, highly sensitive people, PTSD, and we also understand that sometimes the symptoms of high trauma exposure can overlap and look like some of the symptoms of ADHD. But as an advocacy field, what we're recognizing is that within those diagnoses, there are unique strengths that sit side by side with those unique challenges. And that the diversity of the ways our brains function also contribute value to our society in terms of some of the innovative thinking we've been talking about earlier, divergent ways of seeing and being creative in the world. So we want to honor those unique strengths that are innate to those neurotypes, as well as provide the real supports that are necessary in areas where they might struggle.
Yeah. Drew, I know something about Dr. Niki that our listeners don't know yet. Because let me touch upon it, Niki, because I think it'll be a really amazing example of the beauty and the brilliance of neurodiverse, learners and our fellow humans.
Mm-hmm.
You and I, Niki is a huge fan of theater.
Yes.
Okay. I think Wicked might be her number one favorite show. So she loves theater. She's taking our kids to theater. And we were talking about theater, Drew. I love theater as well. And I read Ron Chernow's biography called Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
The same time I was reading it, another individual by the name of Lin-Manuel Miranda was reading it. We clearly were not consuming the same book because I would have never thought of Hamilton in a million years, and it would have never been on Broadway, and it wouldn't have been enjoyed by millions of people. Can you talk about that?
So a big part of what we are really looking to uplift with the neurodivergent learner is this idea, again, the idea of divergent thinking is the gift, right? Mm-hmm. A different way of seeing the same things that we're all seeing. It filters through that neurotype in a way that accesses the creative parts and centers of the brain. One thing that we see that I love, and I don't want to assume I know Lin-Manuel's diagnosis or anything or that, we just know we're valuing his creativity.
Correct.
But let's say he's neurodivergent in some way, if he was. The research shows us that people with ADHD and other categories of neurodivergence have what they call, quote unquote, excessive theta brainwave activity. Mm-hmm. And so, but in the literature, in the science, that's presented as problematic because we're not in the beta brainwave of closed mode focus and attention and attending to executive functioning, which is where you might have been when you were reading Chernow's book.
That's correct.
In closed mode thinking,
correct.
Consume the details, get the facts, be able to regurgitate it, get an A on the test.
Exactly what I was enjoying I love history,
right.
And I was just enjoying the book and the historical perspective on it.
Right. So when we talk about people with theta brainwaves, we have more open mode thinking, which we could call daydreaming, inattention, lack of focus. Now that's problematic for the classroom environment. But what theta brainwave and gives us more access to is open mode thinking, which is more exploration and innovation versus execution and implementation. So a person like that is able to read that book with a wide mind, more imagination is coming through, his knowledge of hip hop, his experience in the city, the experience of being immigrant, the political context around the value and contributions of immigrants in our culture, all converge in a way that allows that same book to siphon through his experiences in his brain and his level of creativity in that innovative space to spit out to us something that the world calls genius.
So let me follow up, Drew, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Theta waves. Now, see, boy, I could spend all day talking about the brain. So the question is, shouldn't we also be learning how perhaps thinkers like me looking at Hamilton can release our own theta waves? Isn't that part of the exploration of studying neurodiverse learners to teach us?
Yeah, so for me, I bring this work into supporting teachers, and I've not seen it in any other type of teacher training program or anything, because my point is, both your point exactly. What if our goal is not just to force the neurodivergent learner to be able to anchor the theta brainwave, the beta concentration brainwave, which is what we want in school or at work, whether that be by medication or biofeedback or all the therapies that we're trying to do to help them concentrate and be in this linear, mind. What if we have more strategies in school that actively cultivate open mode thinking?
Right.
So that now they can be allowed to be turned loose in the way that their brain is naturally, innately primed to function, then help them build the skills to scaffold and cross the bridge to shift into closed mode thinking when you need them to execute. So I'm in theta, open mode, to get all these great ideas, like Einstein had a daydream about the theory of relativity. It comes through in that open mode thinking. Now build my capacity to shift into closed mode thinking, to implement it, to take those theories, the dream that I had, and work it out through my knowledge of physics. So you get the theory of relativity and you call me genius. But Einstein was considered to be autistic and he has child with schizophrenia. So we understand neurodivergence is a part of the brain that brings us the brilliance.
Yeah.
So now for you and me, and this was where I made the original connection in the research, because I was working through a health situation many years ago, and conventional medicine and things were not getting me where I needed to be. So that was what brought me into mind body. So I started learning yoga and clinical breathwork, trauma-informed breathwork, and mindfulness and types of energy healing work to understand how to repair my own nervous system from the traumatic experience. And so part of that was taking meditation classes to learn how to access the theta brainwave. And so here I'm sitting in a room full of wealthy people, interesting people, intelligent people, paying lots of money to be trained how to slow their brainwaves down to get into creative and healing states so that they could alter healing states in the body. Then as an educator and a researcher, I'm reading research because I'm looking up theta brainwave to just learn more about how to get to my creativity and to the healing states. But then I start bumping into the research that was talking about people who are ADHD and have the theta beta brainwave ratios. And I'm like, wow, over here, we're saying medicate them to get them out of theta. And over here, we're paying money to learn how to access theta. Why aren't we merging this together? And that's where my neurodivergence converged.
Incredible.
So how do we take that in the classroom and in the way we raise children? Yes, we're real about the significant challenges that people that are neurodivergent face, whether that's through reading challenges with dyslexia or attention and focus challenges with ADHD. But as we work to support neurodivergent learners to balance and support where they struggle, we cannot forget to uplift them and cultivate them in the areas where they automatically, naturally, innately shine. And that's what we're doing. We're only overemphasizing the therapy, the treatment, the program. We're not cultivating the capacity that's already naturally in the way their brain functions.
Yeah, we're chatting with Dr. Niki Elliott, Director of the Center for Embodied Equity at Neurodiversity at the University of San Diego, School of Leadership and Education Sciences, better known as SOLS. I'm Drew Schlosberg. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest running community podcast. We're now in our 19th year, brought to you by the great folks at Mission Fed Credit Union, 6 decades of doing great things in San Diego County, joined by my colleague, the CEO and founder of Cloudcast Media, Charles Parisi. When we come back from break, I want to continue that conversation, but actually want to dive a little bit into the Heart-Centered Connections Certificate Program the San Diego Foundation is involved in their higher ed professional certificate in trauma-informed neurodiversity with the ECMC Foundation. And then we always leave time at the second half of the show, Niki, what can our listeners do to support your efforts? Can they volunteer? Can they donate? Can they be, volunteers to do whatever the case may be when we return after this short break?
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. Honored to have in the studio with us Dr. Niki Elliott, Director of the Center for Embodied Equity and Neurodiversity at USD School of Leadership and Ed Sciences, joined by my colleague Charles Parisi, CEO and founder of Cloudcast. You know, we were just chatting at break about what you just said makes so much sense, but the world makes so much sense. And my example has always been, you know, the wheel was invented in 3000 BC, suitcases probably in 1 BC, and we put the wheel on a suitcase in 1970. Really? Are you kidding me? Forgot, maybe it has nothing to do with neurodiversity, but that's the stuff that's right in front of our face, right? In this aspect. Talk about Heart-Centered Connection Certificate Program.
Thank you. So our signature offering at the Center for Embodied Equity and Neurodiversity is, it was 25 hours. We're now expanding it to a 30-hour professional certificate that is really designed to help all child-facing professionals and caregivers in understanding the basic foundations of what we all need to know about neurodivergent learners and their needs in order to create a wider net of inclusivity. So if I can contextualize it a little bit.
Please. I mean, yeah, we can go longer than normal. We okay? You on a time frame? Good. We'll hear for.
Let's go overtime. It's Super Bowl weekend.
I think we should go into fifth quarter right now.
Are you open for a little extra overtime?
Yeah, I just got to check what time my next appointment is,
okay.
But we're good.
Okay, well, we can bring him into the studio.
Yeah,
or her. That's right, exactly.
So the context of this for the Heart-Centered Connections curriculum is about my son. So I'm the parent of an adopted son. We adopted from foster care. He had prenatal drug exposure, and physical head trauma at birth, which resulted in a dual diagnosis of intellectual disability and emotional disturbance. So we had behaviors as well as cognitive challenges. And what our experience was, he's 18 now. He's thriving and he's moving into his best life. But in that experience, can you imagine a neurodivergent child who has never been able to be on a sports team, never attended summer camp, never been included in Boy Scouts, no experience at the YMCA, arts classes, music classes, even before and after school programs, anything that's outside of the special ed class where the teacher and the aides have been specifically trained, everyone else in community, and I value the extracurricular activities that happen on a school campus as much as I value the expanded community learning opportunities that we all take for granted. So when you have a child that has been systematically excluded from those experiences because the adults say, sorry, I was never, quote unquote, trained to, quote unquote, deal with a child like this. So this curriculum comes out of that because this is happening all across America. And if this is not a family's lived experience, you have no way of understanding the amount of marginalization and isolation that families face. So this Heart-Centered Connections curriculum asks the question, what are the core skills and personal disposition that any adult provider needs to create the widest net of inclusion and care for children who are neurodivergent? This includes foster parents. You just think we have court-ordered advocates and rights holders for children whose parents have lost custody, making decisions for children's lives. But sometimes they're assigning things to willful misbehavior that are really a function of the brain and nervous system condition of the diagnosis. But we have no collective baseline awareness. So this curriculum is based in applied educational neuroscience. It is an integrated mind-body approach because what we understand in terms of success for neurodivergent learners and what I saw in the life of my child is that as a first point, when the adult in charge, whether professionally or as a private caregiver, has nervous system capacity and has what we call vagal tone. So they have the ability to have more bounce back ability, greater window of tolerance, a greater ability to provide what we call co-regulation, where they can lend their settled nervous system to the child when they're struggling, that becomes the foundation for supporting neurodivergent learners. Because we understand as part of these diagnoses, many of these children have low vagal tone by nature. So more rigid nervous systems, less flexible, easier to trigger, harder to recover. But the adults need to understand the care and feeding of the human nervous system to support these children at the highest level.
Right. And is this area of neurodiversity, what you're talking now with the heart-centered connections certificate, an emerging science aspect of it? Like anything in life, we've probably known about this for a zillion years. We just haven't unraveled it. That seems to be what we do in that aspect of it. But are now other universities jumping in on this as well?
So many universities are now building centers for neurodiversity.
Yeah.
A lot of them are looking at creating modifications and supports for neurodivergent learners themselves as they move through schools.
Right.
There are very few that are doing what we do, which is our goal. We get a lot of calls from parents. Can you help my neurodivergent student? If I send them to USD, can you give them support with autism? Our work is distinct. As it relates to heart-centered connections or the other, we are here to build the capacity of educators, caregivers, and community service providers so that they can better serve neurodivergent learners and people in the population. So with the heart-centered connections, we train in school districts, we train in foster family agencies, we train in community-based agencies. So what we are so excited about, we just finished a certificate, the first one that was delivered under the grant with San Diego Foundation, because they realized, wow, we're giving money to community-based organizations to serve children. We didn't think about the fact that children with special needs are being excluded from these environments because the people who are running YMCA, Boy Scouts, all these wonderful community organizations don't have the skills to serve a wider range of students. So now we say, what if, as a condition for getting grants, you're required to make sure all of the people who work for you have this training, and now we cast a wider net. So we did this last summer with Perla's group at the university. We're bringing in university undergrads to run science camp. 30% of the children who registered for that science camp identified as neurodivergent. Those undergrads are great. They want to make some money. They want to have a good time in the summer. They have no background and preparation to supporting children with autism and ADHD and emotional health challenges. So we trained, and I said my number one goal for this training, as I trained all of those summer camp operators at our university, I will call this a success if not one child is removed from this camp because people say we don't have the skills to support their behaviors. And at the end of the summer, they understood what disposition they needed to hold, ways they needed to change the learning environment, the physical environment, the instructional environment, when to call in supports when the needs were beyond their capacity. And at the end of the summer, not one child was sent home and removed from that camp.
That was amazing. We're chatting with Dr. Niki, Elliott, director of the Center for Embodied Equity and Neurodiversity at USD Souls. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, nation's longest-running community podcast. We're now in our 19th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. 6 decades of just doing great things in San Diego County, from food insecurity to financial literacy to the arts. Joined by my colleague, the CEO and founder of Cloudcast Media, who is, anyone has heard Charles speak, he is totally into the brain and neurodiversity and all this times, 8,000. And it's so exciting to see all this new stuff, pop up on this. I like the fact that you are, training the teachers, so to speak, and do you see this as, especially those who are dealing with special populations, as being part of the School of Ed curriculum?
So that would be an ultimate goal, a dream goal for my career.
Right.
Because the thing that we get with people who have completed our certificate, and we've worked with many school districts and county office of education, when people finish this program, they say, oh my God, no one should be allowed to be over influence of a child without this training. And so the goal is to work with our credentialing agencies. Now, that's a big political thing statewide to say that this work needs to be foundational. Most teachers are not receiving any instruction on applied educational neuroscience, understanding brain function in their training, in their teacher training. Most educators are not receiving any deep instruction on socio-emotional learning about their own nervous system and how their own mood regulation affects how the classroom is working. So there's research that shows that teacher burnout and teacher stress levels are directly correlated to elevation of cortisol in children. So they're showing the higher the teacher's burnout score, the higher their elevation of cortisol in children. We know cortisol is in direct competition with accessing the thinking and learning centers of the brain.
No question. I have a question for you. Because Drew and I spend a lot of time, Drew particularly, around superintendents and school districts. And we know there's a very large percentage of the budget of a district is for special education.
Yeah.
Let me put quotation marks around that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe if there was a greater embrace of what we're talking about here, those investments would perhaps deliver even more returns for the same dollar?
Oh my God, absolutely.
Okay.
Because currently in special ed, there are, when you look at the rates of medical disabilities like blindness, cerebral palsy, those rates are kind of stay consistent. But when you look at the more nebulous categories of special ed categories, specific learning disability or OHI, other health impairment, those rates are increasing significantly. So greater and greater percentages of school budgets are going towards special ed. Then you're getting lawsuits from parents when the students' needs aren't being met. More and more placements in non-public schools, which run school districts up to $70,000, $80,000 a student. So am I saying that it can eliminate the need for special ed? No, there'll always be some. But can we capture a wider net of students that are currently being referred, especially children of color being overrepresented with diagnoses of emotional disturbance, when we need to understand trauma and high ACE scores, adverse childhood experience scores, as a function of neurodiverse and the way that it changes brain and nervous system function when a person is being forced to prioritize survival. When teachers understand this work, when they embody it, and when they implement all 7 pillars of the Heart-Centered Connections curriculum, we are consistently seeing reductions in out-of-class expository discipline for children. We are consistently seeing the general ed teacher, because again, you have to remember, most general ed teachers don't get any background in special ed. But what we're saying through the Heart-Centered Connections curriculum is, no, there is a foundational level of awareness that everyone who works with children needs to have to be able to serve, including neurodivergent children, rather than refer. Yeah. And when we do that, we're seeing the school districts that we've partnered with for a long time see teachers needing less send-outs for referrals because they feel more capable of meeting those children's needs within the general ed classroom.
But I think they'd end up becoming better teachers for all the students.
They are. Because again, so what I liken this piece to, when we think about physical disability, wheelchair users, we've used the cutouts on the sidewalks. I don't know what the formal name of it, I call them cutouts. And we have the ramps. Mm-hmm. But all of society benefits from that.
Yeah, universal design, they call it, right?
Right. So, a stroller, a mom with a stroller benefits from that. In New York, right, with our laundry carts or our grocery carts, we benefit from that. A child on a scooter following behind their parents on the sidewalk. So many of us. So what we're looking at with this Heart-Centered Connections curriculum is, what if we tailor our disposition, our classroom design, and our ways of design and instruction to the needs of the neurodivergent learner. So with the ADHD in mind is my framework, because I just came from an ADHD conference. ASPART was here in San Diego. I was on a panel. And what they are understanding now is how much ADHD overlaps with a lot of these other diagnoses. So we see a lot of overlap with ADHD and autism, overlap ADHD dyslexia, overlap ADHD and trauma, overlap ADHD and anxiety or depression. So in this work, we're saying, what if we help everyone understand the teaching methodologies, the conditions that could help that learner, since it cuts across so many diagnoses of neurodivergence, now that can help across diagnoses, and it can help across the neurotypical population of students who also are struggling. And now, what if we could capture back 75% of students that are currently being referred out for exceptional programming, special day classes, and these kind of things. So am I saying that every child could come back? No, there's exceptional needs, but I believe we could capture back a good 70% of the students that are being marginalized and pushed out.
Yeah, there's no question about that. Again, chatting with Dr. Niki Elliott, she's the director of Center for Embodied Equity and Neurodiversity at USD Souls. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. Another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, joined by my colleague Charles Parisi. I worked for San Diego Unified a billion years ago, and worked very closely with the special ed folks. This is long time. We actually edited a curriculum for learning handicapped kids and so forth. And of course, every time you go into education, you're changing another. It's not SED anymore. They call it X, Y, and Z. And
yes, we're changing all the terminology.
100%. But I think the thing to me is that the general public has absolutely no clue on a billion things in this world, right? And one of them is, the cost of special ed. Mm-hmm. And my daughter will tell you, the amount of lawsuits that are coming to the schools, nobody has any idea of what those are doing to the school districts. Mm-hmm. And that's crazy about this. I think a good panel, Charles, certainly talking to Niki about 4 billion other things that she's doing, is just sort of letting the general public understand this is how this is working.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the frontline educators who are working with those students, we really need to get them up to speed sooner rather than later.
Well,
right.
you got to change a lot of things, going on in education. You can start with charter schools because maybe they won't have as many restrictions.
But they also don't have as much funding when it comes to
100%.
Special ed. So
that's right.
100%. Right. It's a catch-22.
Well, we definitely have a funding problem in the world of education.
Yeah. Well, or it could be a use of funding problem.
Yeah,
but,
right.
But listen, everyone can argue how the money is spent and all that. What irritates me is that when someone says, hey, they have $1 billion budget. Yeah, but they have $1.5 billion in needs. Mm-hmm. So that $1 billion doesn't mean anything, in that aspect of it. I think Niki would be great to have one of these panels we've always talked about. We did one with Jacopo and
we did a little neuroscience night at UCSD.
Oh.
We called it Lost in Thought.
Okay.
Yes.
But Drew, I'll tell you, there's something else that I'm hearing on this show, and I realize every time I sit in with Drew, because he's been doing this 19 years, he's the expert. I don't know what I'm doing. I got to passion and purpose, right? They align, and so often they're fueled by our personal feelings and emotions, sometimes anger. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to me about the younger Niki with the young son? Mm-hmm. Were you feeling a lot of anger and hopeless with your son? And that's what's fuel? Because I feel your passion. So take us back there with how all this passion has come together in an unbelievable way.
It is definitely, because as a career educator, and again, when we made the decision to adopt my son, we were clear about the diagnoses and the challenges. And because I had so much success previously as a classroom teacher with the students I was serving, I was like, oh, no problem. We're holistic. We can get them off that asthma medication. We can, change the dairy, change the diet. We'll get some neurofeedback. Like I was diving in. It's very different to sit on the parent side of the equation with a neurodivergent child who is, every time you sit in front of a team of educators at an IEP meeting, every time you're with a developmental pediatrician, the disrespect, the justification of marginalization, the attempt to minimize services, I pushed and I fought, for the proper diagnosis, for the optimal treatment, and now when I see what he's able to do, he's in the extended high school program for 18 to 22. So I got to push for him to be included in the general ed program. They've removed the emotional disturbance diagnosis. So he can move through the campus without an aide and do all these things. But now he's coming back home. Oh, I had to fight for it to get in the video production class. So let's put him on a career track. Let's see how far he can go. Mom, I'm learning how to use the camera. It's a Canon, CANON. And so then I'm calling his dad. You got to buy him a Canon, whatever they're teaching in school, and get him a computer. Because again, it's always a lack of assumption of competence of what a child could do. Let's not put a limit on it and see how far he can go. And so this has been every bit of push. I mean, literally, when he wanted to play basketball, this young man, he watches Michael Jordan's Last Dance, I think it is.
Yes, it is.
59,000 times. Mm-hmm. He can tell you the year Scottie Pippen did this and the year Dennis Rodman did that. And you're like, wow, there's a capacity here. But he's also watching street hoop online. Then he starts teaching himself how to play. Then he wants to be on the school basketball team.
There you go.
They told him, we have a caregiver that helps us with this care, what time the practice was and where it was. The team wasn't there.
You know what I'm hearing too, Drew? And this is why what you're doing is so important. I got to take my hat off to USD, Souls, Dean Kimberly White-Smith, because here's what I'm also hearing, Drew. A nationally renowned expert on neurodiversity is still fighting every day with the folks that are working with our own son.
Yeah. I'm going to get
Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yeah, but so what do you mean the team wasn't there?
They told him a different time and location
On purpose.
of the practice on purpose.
See,
because by law, they can't say he can't participate. They can just make it hard for him to get there and then give up. Right?
Yeah. See, my head's about ready to spin off of my shoulders.
Likewise.
Over here. My father, rest his soul, was a medical doctor and taught medicine at UCLA and was a gastroenterologist, but was totally into all the things that you're talking about. And when we do this stuff, all we're doing is setting us up for, frustrating the hell out of parents like you, and most importantly, frustrating the kid.
Yeah.
And there's really no excuse for this. Absolutely, positively, you almost want to grab someone by the throat. And this is where I want to be king for a world, for a day at least in this. How do we change this?
Well, that's what I'm here for, right? I advocate for my son to a level, and all due respect, I'm not naming the school, but
no, of course not.
They did come through and they put him in the video. They said, okay, we can't include him. He's in a workability program. He has a part-time job at the hardware store. But that was because of what I did, and so I have to sit back and say, here I am, a career educator, a professor. You shouldn't have to Google my name and see my credentials to know that you got to call the head of special ed from the district office to show up at my IEP meeting to make sure that I get what I need for my kid because you're worried about being sued because of what my title is online. And I have to recognize that privilege. And I have to say, what about all the children
that can't fight like you
who
can?
don't have a parent who can fight like me, who knows the system? What about all the children in foster care who have a stranger who's not even related to them serving as an education rights holder and decision maker for their life? It's my job to take this convergence of the passion and pain of my lived experience, match it with my expertise and the thing that I've dedicated my entire life to, and turn it into an advocacy that creates a wider net for children who don't have a mom like me.
Yeah. So, Charles, we need to do a special edition with the audience, with a panel, with Niki, and so forth.
And maybe we'll do it down at the Brain Observatory.
Okay.
A nice panel with perhaps you and Dr. Jacopo and Ase and talking about this because we're going to be doing, I mentioned off air, Drew, we're going to be doing some neurodiversity tracks at the Brain Observatory. And because again, it's funny, Drew, you and I are sports fans, and this is what's really frustrating. We love sports, okay? And it's what you said earlier, Drew, this is so simple. We had the Super Bowl this weekend. No one's trying to turn an offensive lineman into a quarterback, okay? Right? Or a defensive tackle into a wide receiver.
Right.
No, you blend everyone's tremendous strengths and you come out better together. Like it's so simple,
right?
But we won't do that when it comes to neurodiversity.
Well, we need to.
We want to make everyone a quarterback.
Yeah. Well, what can we do? What can we do to support your efforts? Besides the fact that this will not be the last time you're on the show, probably to your detriment. But what can we do to support you?
So we are working to expand the training. So I'm kind of maxed out on the amount of travel days I can take. I love my husband. I can only be gone from home so much. But we're really looking to get school districts interested in sending teachers, teacher coaches, to really come with and join with us in going through the training and going through the trainer version of the training. So it's 2 levels, a practitioner level and then a trainer level, so that we can get this work disseminated to school districts, to foster family agencies as quickly as possible. So we do have on our Center for Embodied Equity and Neurodiversity website a giving link. So donations that allow us to subsidize community nonprofits. So like even San Diego Foundation has asked, even next year, can we give scholarships to people from the Boys and Girls Club? This summer, we are training. There's a summer camp that's going to be offered in Julian this summer then the organization has specialized it for students with ADHD. So they've reached out to us to say, can you train our summer camp staff so that we can provide the proper care and knowledge so these children will have a great summer camp experience. So if community donors would love to fund scholarships so that we can train and get this certificate into all of the community-based organizations that can create more inclusion, we would be honored to be partners and to bring on more trainers that can get this work.
And what's the website?
I don't know it by heart.
Well, how about this? USD Souls. Go to USD Souls and then look under the...
Yeah, so under there's a tab under USD Souls for the centers, and you can find the Center for Embodied Equity and Neurodiversity, CEEN, CEEN.
Drew, I have an idea. Maybe it's worth, hey, listen, it's on the air now. So USD has hosted the most recent soup tank competition. Maybe an idea, since the soups are gathering, if they want to come maybe an hour early to learn a little bit about what you're doing, that may be a little potential tie-in, since so many of them will be there for Soup Tank at USD.
Yeah, we can talk about that. So Soup Tank is an idea created by the board chair of Classroom of the Future Foundation. I've been on that board. I've been involved since its inception in 1997, to show you how old I am, for God's sake. So we came up with an idea that's like Shark Tank. So we get the county superintendents to do a 3-minute pitch to business folks. And of course, we have used it at your place, or to Warren Auditorium, and working with Perla and Dean White Smith. And not a bad idea. We'll take a look at that. We also do a show called Future Pathways Superintendents Unplugged, where we interview all the county superintendents. So something we could probably mention during that next episode as well.
Okay.
Well, Niki, it's so great to meet you. This won't be the last time. Charles and I will be thinking about 4 billion things. I know you're going to be doing stuff with the Yacopo anyway at the Brain Observatory, but would love to. We always offer this to the folks. We'll consider you a rookie on our Spotlight show.
All right, thank you.
Soon not to be a rookie on it. Would love to have you bring in someone that you've worked with, a teacher, a student, whomever, next time you're on, and talk about this is what this has done for me. We love to have, the street cred with it. You got a ton of street cred, obviously, already, but bring in someone that's benefited.
That would definitely love to do that. We're working in La Mesa Spring Valley schools right now, so we could definitely bring them over.
Are you working with David?
David Feliciano, yes.
He's coming on the show next week.
All right. Well, he's personally in the certificate right now. The entire district office. I just want to give a shout out to La Mesa Spring Valley. Like, they brought it in for the entire middle school, STEAM Academy. And then a second cohort of the certificate is the entire district office.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, we'll be interview him next Thursday.
He's a great guy.
Awesome.
Hey, Drew, before you leave the air, though, Drew, there's a connection between you and Niki that you may not be completely aware of.
Can you give me a hint? Do I have to get this, like 20 questions?
Yeah, somehow it's tied to your email address.
So you went to UCLA?
I did. I got my doctorate from UCLA.
Yeah. So I was weaned on the campus. My dad taught medicine at UCLA. Okay. And he was a gastroenterologist and had a practice in Los Angeles. So UCLA is near and dear to my heart.
Awesome.
I'm a million years older than you, but we were fortunate enough to have season tickets to the John Wooden era.
All right.
So we saw the championships, and I spent half of my youth really bugging the co-eds, because I would be 13 years old, ride my bike down to Poly, and then go to the Coop, and then go to the recreation center, and did it all the time. So how long were you at UCLA?
Oh, it took me about 5.5 years to finish my doctorate, close to 6 years, but it was a great time. I'm LA native.
Where?
So I'm born and raised in Inglewood,
so
South LA area.
I'm on the west side.
Okay.
Let's go Lakers.
Yes,
I'm a Knicks fan, though.
Well, listen, unfortunately, I went to Palisades High.
Oh, no.
And and Paul Revere Junior High, even though I live in the west side. But no Inglewood well. Actually, I played basketball against Reggie Theus, who played at Inglewood, and then went to UNLV, and of course with the Bulls and stuff. So beautiful. Is your family still there?
We've kind of moved out of the city. We're in the suburbs of Los Angeles now. So
where?
Riverside County and San Bernardino County.
Nice.
Yeah.
Niki, what a pleasure. We look forward to having you back on as many times as you'd like. You say hi to Dean White Smith for us.
I will. And a shout out, if I may, to my Souls family.
Absolutely.
This work could not grow the way that it has without the incredible support from the School of Leadership and Education Sciences. from our university administration that has supported my ideas. These programming doesn't exist in this way. And so to have an institution of higher ed value it and stand behind it, and also give us opportunities to train within the university as well. So I just want to, and the San Diego Foundation for giving the launch grant to get this out into the community. I do not stand alone. I have an amazing team, but the support we have to grow this work is phenomenal.
Well, it's been an honor chatting with you, Dr. Niki Elliott, Director of the Center for Embodied Equity and Neurodiversity at USD Souls. Charles, always enjoy having you come on the show as a co-host. We always have a lot of fun. You can tell.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. And want to certainly thank Mission Fed Credit Union, 6 decades of doing great things at San Diego. For so many different areas. They just are great supporters. I'm Drew Schlosberg. You've been listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest running community podcast. We hope you enjoyed the interview.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.